If you've been on Twitter at any point in the last few years, there's a good chance you've seen some out-of-context memes. And by this, I don't just mean any funny image with a joke which you don't get. I mean, you've probably seen a screen cap from a popular TV show with a joke or significant moment from some episode or another, posted by an account called something like Out of Context Parks and Rec, or Out of Context BoJack Horseman, etc, etc. But in the last few months, one of these sitcoms has been taking this little corner of Twitter by storm, and that's a show called Anaesthesia Blues. This is a show that until now hadn't ever been the focus of much attention. It's even been called the best show nobody is watching. But that's all changing, because the highlights of its 14-season run are being posted to Twitter by an account named Anaesthesia Blues Out of Context, and they're really resonating with viewers that hadn't previously heard of the show. Moments like Marcus's midlife crisis, the infamous Great Mall heist, and Terrence's disastrous existential crisis have all been snapped into quotable moments, captioned and sent out as memes into the Twitter sphere, and they've been doing numbers. So what's the problem? Why is this remarkable, and how is it any different to the similar accounts posting moments from other shows that we all know and love? Well, the main difference is that none of this is real. And I don't mean this in the postmodern sense, that the world depicted in Anaesthesia Blues is so detached from ours that it can't be understood as real. I mean it in a literal sense. This show does not exist. The Twitter account posting these out-of-context memes is, as far as I can tell, just posting stock images and writing their own fake lines over the top. Sometimes these lines are more or less in line with what's typical for the genre, and sometimes they're borderline absurd, hinting at the falsehood of the account's premise. It's all one huge joke, but it's a joke that's being shown to thousands of strangers each day. And it seems like a lot of strangers haven't even noticed that this is not a real show. Because we see, looking at quote tweets and replies to the images this account posts, plenty of confused people trying to find out where to watch the show, and for reasons I'm sure you can work out, not many have succeeded. And this is interesting to me, because while most of the fun with this account, most of the interest people show in it is due to a fairly simple in-joke, let's pretend this show exists and laugh in good nature at people that haven't figured out the ruse, I think there's something more to the Anaesthesia Blues phenomenon. The reason this bit could only work as well as it does today. The often overlooked aspect of this project, the thing that makes it work at all, is that these captions are funny. They're often funnier if you know none of it is real, but they're also decent jokes, quotable moments in that exact snappy, snarky style of other millennial sitcoms. From what I can tell, and I have no insider knowledge whatsoever, it looks like this might be an account run by Jeremy Kaplowitz, editor of Hard Drive magazine, and that would explain the good writing, but I think it's worth taking a moment to consider the fact that people are so impressed by some of these 2-second punchlines that they'll like and retweet these posts and try and figure out the background of the show. Because when we have out-of-context style memes being posted which actually have no context behind them, it's made more apparent that people who follow and enjoy any accounts of this type, even for real shows, aren't even doing it really because they like the show and want to watch it. They're doing so out of enjoyment of these screen caps themselves, instant bite-sized hits of snappy writing, be it from Brooklyn Nine-Nine or the brain of some trickster on Twitter. This isn't television, and it isn't a standard meme either. It's closer to classic comic strips from newspapers and the like, except even sparser, even more pared down. A single joke, a single moment captured in a freeze frame. In some ways this is a form, a medium, all to itself. But in some ways it isn't. There have been writers with a similar philosophy of brevity to what we see in out-of-context posting for millennia. Perhaps the first notable one in the Western tradition at any rate was Callimachus, an Alexandrian writer who rejected the tendencies of his predecessors who favoured longer, even epic poetry. Callimachus thought that poetry should get to the point, and as such was influential in the development of a style known as the epigram. This style already existed, but in some ways Callimachus popularised it, making it fashionable for hundreds of years afterwards to write things a handful of lines long, instead of thousands of lines long. Some of my favourite epigrams are by the Roman poet Catullus, himself hugely influenced by Callimachus. Here's a well-known one, translated. I hate and I love. Why do I do this, perhaps you ask? I know not, but I feel it happening, and I am tortured. Powerful, simple and brief, but hugely effective. In the original Latin, that's only 2 lines, a far cry from the exceedingly long works some of his contemporaries were known for. So people have appreciated short-form writing for millennia, and poems like epigrams, as well as some Eastern forms like the haiku, capture in a similar way to out-of-context Twitter posts the idea of a singular, meaningful moment. With regard to the real versions of the form the Anaesthesia Blues account is parodying, that is, taking snippets of dialogue from a larger whole to enjoy alone, we also have examples of a similar dynamic that's hundreds of years old. From way before the internet, readers often used to keep quote books, so every time they found a bit of poetry that they particularly liked, or a profound thought in a novel, they'd scribble it down for themselves to remember, entirely divorced from the passage's original context. A similar practice, and equally quite old, is the way certain writers will preface their work with a short quote of somebody else's, an epigraph. So what we've learned from this little stroll down memory lane is that people have appreciated individual moments, tiny discrete units of writing, for thousands of years. And what's more, people often appreciated these mini poems or quotes entirely apart from their original context. So what makes this Twitter phenomenon, this Anaesthesia Blues account, different? Well, it's the way it speaks to a broader shift in the way television is understood and consumed. Because until relatively recently, people couldn't approach TV in the way that these Twitter accounts do, as a collection of moments, linked but also discrete, standalone. Television wasn't like that. It wasn't like a long poem that you could just quote a couple of lines from in your quote book. It was multi-dimensional, not just words, and what's more, it was a fleeting experience. Before, say, DVDs, unless you were a broadcast station with the actual hard copies, you tended to see an episode of TV just once. It was broadcast live or from a recording, and that was that. Successful TV shows could sometimes be syndicated, and networks would air reruns. Then maybe you'd see and relive bits and moments you'd enjoyed previously, but again, you couldn't rewind. These broadcasts would play continuously from beginning to end. Less a collection of moments, of lines, and more one unified experience. Sure, if you were a die-hard hobbyist, you could tape a show. But before DVDs, unless you had a lot of storage space and a decent amount of money, this was the exception, not the rule. But when we get closer to the 21st century, this paradigm began to shift. Seasons of TV were released in DVD box sets, +1 channels started becoming a thing, and more recently, streaming happened. Now that we have potentially infinite reruns at our fingertips, we watch TV in a different way. That's why young people are often on their phones during watch sessions, I think, because they know they can just re-watch whatever they're seeing later and pick up bits that they missed. You didn't used to be able to do that, and more modern shows are made with this rewatchability in mind. Arrested Development was clearly made for the DVD crowd, and so was Community. These shows have layers upon layers of jokes that you just can't get on a single viewing. Every time I rewatch them now, I still pick out bits that I hadn't noticed before. And as a result of this paradigm shift, younger audiences find shows they like and rewatch them ad infinitum. I know I do, and it's got to the point with some shows where, like these Twitter accounts, I can think of an episode and recall all these individual moments and jokes. If I'm re-watching it, I'll already be familiar with them, I'll know when they're coming. And I'm sure it's the same with most of you. And when you know something inside out like that, when you're intimately familiar with all the moments that create the whole, I think it's a lot easier to conceive of film or an episode of television as a collection of scenes, of jokes, of moments, rather than a single continuous whole that it would have been even 30 years ago. Our television watching culture then, particularly amongst the younger demographics, feels like it's being increasingly anatomized. And these out-of-context accounts posting punchlines without the setup, without the background with which they were designed to function, well, for a lot of people, that probably seems an entirely natural way of engaging with a show. As a result, when a random Twitter user sees a stock photo captioned with an absurdist quip posted by Anaesthesia Blues out of context, maybe they don't question it, and maybe that's because they're used to watching and rewatching clips and scenes without context. Maybe now that the digital world is at their fingertips to be played and played again, rewound, freeze-framed, investing one's attention in context and a show's reality is less important than it used to be. And this may be a trend which we see playing out in more and more obvious ways in the coming decades. After all, what are TikToks and Vines and YouTube Shorts but Kalamachian epigrams to the epic poetry of conventional long-form broadcast media? Maybe out-of-context image accounts are just the quote books of today's readers, now that television and film are no longer unified, continuous media, but video files to be frozen and manipulated at will. And Anaesthesia Blues, maybe the name's a metaphor. If any of you have been the subject to general anesthesia, you'll know that it makes the world, it makes reality fade away. But you barely notice the process until you wake up. Maybe the medium of television has so shifted by its digitalization and anatomy that it's already faded away, and none of us have realized. And maybe we won't realize until it's gone. Maybe that's the deal with Anaesthesia Blues. Or maybe it's just a fun Twitter account and I've just wasted all of our collective time. But check it out, see for yourself and let me know what you thought of my analysis. I'm trying to branch out a bit and talk about a wider variety of topics, so if you've watched this video, thank you so much for giving it a shot and I hope you liked it. We're done now though, so bye.